Hello and welcome. I'm Brad Fraser.
I'm Spencer Shunk.
And this is Old Movies for Young People.
And today we're talking about two great horror films of the 1960s.
Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
And Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte.
Whatever Happened to Baby Jane from 1962, directed by Robert Aldrich and featuring two of the greatest screen divas of all time, two rivals who hated one another throughout their careers, Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. The story's a rather simple one. They're both movie stars. Jane, played by Bette, was a child star who did very well, while Blanche, who's played by Joan Crawford, was a more mature star, and they had a rivalry throughout their lives. They didn't get along very well. And then there was a mysterious accident in which Blanche was crippled and had to spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. Now, with that mega backstory going on, we come in and the two women are living together in a small house in LA, surviving on the money they have left over from their careers, and things are not going very well.
Remember what year you made that picture?
But of course. You must too, 1934, right after I did Moonglow.
I made a picture that year too.
Oh, yes. It was that comedy directed by Lloyd, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. It was a love story. The Longest Night. Marty McDonald said it was the best thing I ever did. They never even released it in the United States.
Bette is losing her sanity, and she's becoming crazier and crazier and becoming more manipulative of her sister until everything explodes, as they usually do in these movies, with murder and mayhem.
My God, Miss Bennett, what has she done to you? Get it off in a minute, Miss Blanche. Don't worry, Miss Blanche. I'll get you down from here. I know, Miss Blanche, I know. You just rest easy.
At its heart, Baby Jane is a movie about codependency and abuse between siblings. It's a story that could be happening anywhere in the world at any time, where one person is dependent on another and the person that is being depended on is very resentful about it and doing horrible things to the person that they're supposed to be caring for.
That was... I know who it was.
No, Jane, it really was.
And I know what you're trying to do.
But I'm not trying to do anything. Honestly, Jane.
Now, Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte from 1964, just 2 years later, is not a sequel, but it's very similar to Baby Jane in a lot of key ways. It's got the same director, Robert Aldrich, the same screenwriters, and it comes from the guy who wrote the novel for Baby Jane. His name is Henry Farrell. He also wrote the short story that Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte is based on, and it's actually called Whatever Happened to Cousin Charlotte, that original story. Things are a little bit different this time. It's still a sisterly conflict based on a mysterious event, actually a murder that happened well in the past, but this time it's not Joan Crawford. We got Olivia de Havilland as her cousin. Basically what happens is Bette Davis is having an affair with a married man when she's very young. Her father, Victor Buono, finds out he's Big Sam Hollis, the owner of this plantation in Louisiana that they live on. She's, you know, the heir to a lot of money, but John Mayhew, her lover, played by Bruce Dern, is murdered by we don't know who. His hand and his head are chopped off with an axe, and the hand and head are never found, are rumored to still be hidden in the house. We flash forward about 40 years later. Bette Davis is this old crazy woman living alone.
And don't forget, the thing that's driving the movie is that the state wants to take the plantation so they can build a road through it.
Stand! Look out! Look out up there! Stand!
Man, oh man!
That crazy woman. I'm telling you.
I wouldn't go out there if I was you.
Now what do you think you're doing firing on my man like that?
That's my land he's plowing up down there.
Her cousin Olivia de Havilland shows up to save her.
I've rented a car for you, Miriam. You can go tomorrow.
Go where?
To Baton Rouge with that damn county commissioner straight. Charlotte.
There's nothing I wouldn't do for you if I could. You know that. But I'm afraid Drew's right. There isn't
anything we can do about the house.
But actually, Olivia hatches a plan with her former lover, Dr. Drew, played by Joseph Cotten in an awesome supporting role. And they've decided, let's convince Betty, Charlotte, that she actually is crazy. And let's get all the money that she's entitled to.
He was always fighting to keep two things, his daughter and his money.
And now he's going to lose both.
Gotta hand it to him, though. He held on to both of them an awful long time, even after he died.
It's a very elaborate plot, and they end up trying to frame her for murder. I won't go into how it all ends.
Baby Jane was so successful that the studio wanted another picture featuring these two actresses that was almost the same. And Joan Crawford was actually hired to play Cousin Miriam in the beginning, but a couple days in decided she was sick when she found out Betty was actually the producer of the movie and left. But for my money, I have to say Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte is the better of the two movies. I think this is a better script. I think it's better actors, and there's a lot more going on. It's atmospheric, it's scary, it's got Agnes Moorehead as the crazy maid, and any movie that has Agnes Moorehead in it is going to be better just by having her presence.
Oh, so you're finally showing the right side of your face, ain't you? Well, I've seen it all the time. That's some kind of drug that you've been giving her. You've been making her act the way she's been. Well, I'm going into town, and I'm going to tell them what you've been up to.
And of course, Olivia de Havilland is
A fantastic
actress, and not as immediately sort of evil as Joan can be.
I'm a Baby Jane fan in this instance. I really like both movies, but I think Baby Jane has the edge. Now, I say in a one-on-one comparison of the casting, yeah, de Havilland does beat Joan, but as a duo, there's so much tension simmering underneath the surface with Davis and Crawford. That real-life feud is brought into the movie. That's some of the best casting in history.
I know I did. But I'm still in this chair. After all those years, I'm still in this chair. Doesn't that give you some kind of responsibility? Jane, I'm just trying to explain to you how things really are. You wouldn't be able to do these awful things to me if I weren't still in this chair. But you are, Blanche. You are in that chair.
And I think there's a few key reasons why Baby Jane has endured and is even, a very well-recognized title now, more so than Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte has. And I think one of them is that casting. And I also think there's this particular nuance to the relationship, the way they play with our sympathies, and the way that we discover at the end that they've actually been torturing each other all along in that really haunting final scene on the beach where Joan finally confesses to Betty. And also it contains some of the most iconic horror film images. We're lifting up the dinner plate, and we have the dead bird, later the rat, but the bird is definitely better. We've got Joan strung up in her bed with her hands tied, which was,
which is truly horrifying.
It's truly horrifying. The horror, that's the thing, the horror is real life.
Betty and Joan are great. I'm not going to argue that. Everybody else in the movie kind of sucks ass.
Oh, Victor Buono.
I find the Victor Buono subplot interesting, but why is his mother there?
The supporting cast, I will give you, with the exception of Victor Buono. There's that scene where he comes to get the job with Betty and they both realize that they're lying, and nobody else in the world would believe either of their bullshit stories, but they find a kinship.
It's funny, really, because actually he came from a rather distinguished family, socially, I mean, yet nearly all the parts he had were playing menials, butlers and such.
Oh, really?
Yes. I don't think my mother ever really appreciated what he was trying to do.
Oh, I know what you mean. It's very hard for an artist when people don't understand.
Everything that happens in Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte is part of the plot. That there are no loose ends. Everybody has an agenda, everybody is doing something, and everybody has a purpose. So there's much more of a cause and effect sense to the plot.
Sure, but it's a little transparent with that Cecil Kellaway character, the reporter who comes in from England because he likes mysteries and basically goes around knocking on doors, getting information out of people, including the key piece of information from the actual killer, Jewel Mayhew, and he
played by Mary Astor in her last
screen
screen appearance. Mary Astor from The Maltese Falcon. Fabulous actress, and all she has left is ruined finery.
Exactly. He's a little convenient.
You know what to do when the time comes. Or what not to do.
Seems a dreadful responsibility.
Oh, it is. A terrible one. My honest advice is to refuse it.
You know I won't, of course.
I know. Ruined finery. That's all I have left.
Well, what I like about Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte is it has gore, it has violence. Everything is pretty much implied with one or two exceptions in Baby Jane, but not so in Charlotte.
You know what? I take issue with some of the questionable machinations in Charlotte's plot. For example, the big hallucination that leads Charlotte into shooting Joseph Cotten's character, which really sets up the climax, is a little strange. How the fuck did they know she was going to have just that hallucination? Because if she didn't, their whole fucking masterful plan wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter because that sequence you described is so much more filmic than anything we see in Baby Jane. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Perhaps we shouldn't even be comparing them except that they were made by the same team with the same actresses.
So close, yeah. Their souls are
The
close.
sad thing is that, you know, both Joan and Betty expected some kind of big career bump to come of this, and it never really happened. They both ended up doing sort of TV and shitty B movies for the rest of their career, and that's very sad because they were and are still legends. So do you think your generation would have any problem watching these movies other than the black and white?
I don't think so, as long as you can get into camp. Because there's a fair bit of camp in Baby Jane and a little bit in Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte too, but they're actually really effective horror movies. They're still scary.
Yeah.
They're still scary.
And they're still fascinating.
And the acting's fucking great.
So I'm going to vote for Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte as being my favorite.
And I'm going to vote for Baby Jane and watch that one first.
Yes, I would say that too. Watch that one first. Watch them in sequence and see what you think. I'm Brad Fraser.
I'm Spencer Shunk.
And this was Old Movies for Young People. We'll see you next time.
Charlotte? Charlotte? Charlotte, what is it?